Hello, friend, and welcome to Sturdy Girl, a podcast focused on strength, not size, where you'll hear conversations around healthy body image, cultivating confidence, and being a resilient human in both body and mind. Sturdy Girl is the podcast where we shift the focus away from your appearance and on to living the big, rad life you deserve. Hello, my sturdy friends, and welcome back to another episode of Sturdy Girl. Today, I have my longtime Instagram friend, Amber, here. We're going to talk body image, running, confidence, probably some other things and some random tangents, but thanks for being here.
Of course. Thank you for having me, Jess.
This is going to be fun. I wanted to give a little introduction, I guess calling you my longtime Instagram friend, but also tell me a little bit about you. What do you do? How long have you been running?
I am a run and strength coach. I have been running, I guess, almost 20 years. I trained for a 5K with my bestie, who's also named Jess, in 2005 for something to do and look forward to. And after that race, I swore I was never going to run farther than that because that was so stupid. Why would anyone do that? Obviously, I have. I've run a 50K, a few marathons, plenty of halves. I am a wife and a mom. I have 2 teenagers, which is wild. And I work for myself. So I have clients that I train one-on-one, running and strength training, and then I do some corporate fitness where I teach classes at a business.
That's awesome. I didn't realize that you've been running 20 years. And also, You got talked into a 5K. You probably crossed the finish line and you're like, F this. I'm never running again. Like, and then how much longer till you signed up for another race?
I would probably say it was honestly a couple years.
Okay.
Because then I had, I would run, but I wasn't racing.
Okay.
And then I had my kids and decided to be a stay-at-home mom. So running became like my me time. Like even if I was pushing my daughter or both of them when my son came along, it was still my time for me. And it was just nice to have that separation of something that I could do for myself.
That's awesome. And then when did you start run coaching or strength coaching?
Well, I started coaching friends first, right? I got my certification, my RRCA certification in 2012, I think.
Okay.
And then strength coaching, I got my personal training certification a couple years after that, I think. I decided that if I was going to go back to working once my kids were of an age where I had a few hours in my day that I wanted to go and do something that mattered. And running and strength training made such a difference in my life that I wanted to be able to help someone else find that, women especially, because I've been strength training, I don't know, I think I started lifting when I was like 12 or 13.
That's awesome.
Like off and on, right? Like I didn't do a lot of it in college.
Fair. Understanding kind of the benefits it can have beyond just physical health.
Yeah.
I also got into running and run coaching after a friend convinced me to sign up for a race. So I love that that's how you got into it too. Yeah. I got talked into a half marathon though. A friend posted on Facebook and was like, I signed up for a half. I'm freaking out. Who's going to train with me?
Like, oh, that sounds terrible. Me?
And it was back when like people just posted random statuses on Facebook, and I was like, I could probably run a half. It sounds absolutely awful, but maybe I could do it.
Yeah.
So I messaged back and I'm like, sure, I'll do it with you. And it was like a 3.5 month ramp up from like nothing to half marathon.
Yeah.
And I was the same way. It was a December half marathon and it was like 35 degrees and raining. And I'm like, I'm never running again. This was the dumbest idea of my life. But in the process, we'd like started a running blog called We Run for Cupcakes. And we had so much fun writing these blogs that I finished that race. And it was a week later and I was like, okay, what race am I doing next?
A week later?
Yeah, it was a week later. It was like by the time the soreness goes away from like running an untrained race. And then went from there. I ran a half that following spring and my first full marathon the fall of that year. It escalated real quick.
Like you just went full throttle.
But same with you where you're like, okay, I started coaching friends. Mine was like friends, family, friends of friends. And then I was like,
probably get certified?
I probably should get certified if I'm going to coach these people.
Yeah.
And the rest is history. Starting out with that love of movement and seeing how much it helps. For me, it was like that mental health piece too.
Yeah. 100%. It was so bad. Like when my kids are little, sometimes they still do it to me and my husband too. But like if I was like grumpy, extra like snappy or whatever, they'd be like, Mom, I think you need to go for a run. So
yes. Okay.
They caught on that is definitely like a mental help for me is to like get out and move my body in that way.
I'm just trying not to like crack up laughing on my microphone over here, but like Same, to the point like Blake will come and hand me my shoes. And so he won't even say anything. And it's not like, hey, you're being a jerk or you're being grumpy.
It's like, you just need to do this.
I think a run might be a good idea. You know, or a lift at this point, like knowing how much it's going to benefit. And in fact, when we first started dating, one of my best friends, she told my husband, she's like, if Jess is ever grouchy, she needs one of three things. She needs some kind of workout, whether that's a run or a lift. She needs food, or she needs sleep, or a combination. It is up to you to figure that out, but I can guarantee you it's one or a combination of those three. Blake will tell you to this day, it has not steered him wrong.
Yeah, that's fair.
So he started always having snacks in like the center console of his car. Here you go, you're being grumpy. Fix it.
Yeah, my husband makes fun of me because I leave food in my glove box.
That's smart though. And especially with all of your long distance running.
Yeah.
How many times you get back to the car and you're like, all right, what's in the glove box?
Yes, I'm so hungry.
Yeah, I
need something now.
Yes, exactly.
Give me the snacks.
Okay, so what is on your race schedule? Because you ran a 50K in the fall.
No, I guess it was later in that year that I trained for the 50K because I remember it being cold, like into 2021.
Okay.
Because I think it was in March of 2021 because I remember just like being cold. There were like icicles on my eyelashes. Like that was how training went. But also we were 4 people in a tiny house at the time. Like my husband was trying to work. The kids were going to school. And then I was just sitting there because, you know, my business was like had imploded.
Yeah.
Because the gym closed, right? And so I was like, I need to do something. So that sounded like something smart to do.
Challenge your body and your brain.
Right.
I love it.
Train for a 50K. It's like rails to trails.
Okay, yeah.
So it was relatively flat. If I'm going to do a 50K, I'm not going to do a technical course. That's just what I know about myself.
That's fair.
I can do shorter races on technical courses, but
okay. What's on deck for 2024?
I don't know. I might be doing a 50K in April, but we'll see. This latest freeze, I'm like, maybe I don't want to do this anymore. It's the training through the winter that is hard. Even though I have the treadmill, then I get tired of that.
Yeah.
So that's my plan right now. We'll see if it changes.
That's what's feeling good right now.
But the winter is like the only time I really have to focus on my training because my kids, my daughter plays softball, my son plays baseball. But like once or April hits, we're busy.
I know you do treadmill running. So you have that as part of so when it freezes, that's where you're at.
Yep. That's where I'm at.
How do you keep yourself entertained on the tread?
So what I like to do on the treadmill is I'll give myself a show that I can watch, but only when I'm on the treadmill. So that kind of motivates me. Like if I want to see what happens, hopefully it's a good show. If I want to see what's happening next in the next episode or whatever, then I have to go down there and get on the treadmill.
I love it. That's kind of what I've been doing too.
Yep.
Yeah.
I was watching last week or earlier this week, I watched the Kevin Hart special. I do not recommend that though, because I almost fell off the treadmill from laughing.
I didn't.
That got me through my run.
I was going to say, right? You're like bracing your arm rails on your treadmill.
Yes.
Keeping yourself
exactly what's happening. Trying not to die.
I'm trying to remember. It was like 2017. We started having pretty bad fires here. And I was relegated to training for a marathon on a treadmill, and I watched all of This Is Us.
Wow.
Probably not all of, but like, how much does that show make you cry?
Oh.
And at the time, we were like in our condo, and we had our treadmill in the loft, and I'd be like sobbing while I'm still running, and then like my husband would come upstairs, and he's like, Jess, are you okay? Like, what happened? And I'm like, the show, and I'm pointing at the But hey, you know what? The distraction piece of being on a treadmill, like, if it makes the time fly, it's worth it.
100%. Whatever it takes to get through it, right?
I'll tell you though, if the show's not doing it, I will bust out early 2000s pop or rock and like the go-to playlist of just obnoxious music, and then just like zone out for the last 10 minutes.
Yeah, that's how I am on long runs. If I run by myself, like outside, 90s, early 2000s hip hop and R&B.
Yes, I love it.
Always gets me through.
Okay, so talking a little bit along the lines of Sturdy Girl and just delving into a little bit about maybe like body image or confidence or resilience, do you feel like running has helped you in any way with like your relationship with yourself or with your body over the years? And we were talking a little bit about that mental health piece.
Right, 100%. I think when I have those tough days, I just reflect on like what my body has been able to do, regardless of what size it's been. I mean, you know, COVID was hard, gained some weight, perimenopause is here, so that's fun.
Not knowing your body.
Yeah. And so I try when I get in that headspace to focus on that, like what my body is capable of, all the miles that it's carried me through, all the races, how much I can lift, or, I
You're
take
a strong human.
pride
Come
in
on.
my
I see
lifting.
I see your like 4 times speed lifts on Instagram,
Yeah, I'm like, make them so fast. Yeah. And then also for me as a mom, like that also helps me, especially for like the running. When the running gets hard, I tap into that. Like, you've had kids, you can finish this half marathon, or you can finish this marathon, or whatever. That's crazy. Like, I grew up kind of similar to you. I had 2 sisters. They're both tiny in like stature, and they're thin. So I'm the tallest, and I have the biggest body. Not to say that I'm like straight sized, And my mom was very thin too when I was growing up. So like, even though my mom never made me feel a certain way about my body or anything like that. I don't even think my sisters did really, but it was still like, because when we grew up,
internalized messaging, right?
This is the messaging: white, blonde, blue-eyed, tiny. This is the American standard. You, ma'am, are none of those things. And my mom actually is. She's white, blue-eyed. So that was a whole other thing. It's like, well, why didn't I get any of that? The whole mind.
How do you feel like that impacted, like growing up and like combating those messages?
I mean, it was hard. I played sports. I played basketball, volleyball. So that definitely helped.
Still, so like the physical movement piece of just, without being ableist, but like focusing on the things that your body can do, your body has done the things you asked. Yeah. And when you're playing sports, for the most part, right, we could get into a whole discussion of like a typical runner's body and like that whole thing.
Right.
But I feel like in high school and those pieces of playing sports, the way your body looks or the size of your body isn't necessarily something that ends up being at the forefront.
Right. It didn't matter as much
anyways.
Yeah.
100%. You're out there working on skills-based practice instead of that.
Yes. In our high school, we had, I think it was the first year they had it, but our assistant basketball coach started a women's weightlifting class. So that was a lot of fun and really empowering to like be able to lift in the weight room at the school, but it just be all females. So we didn't have to take it and deal with the guys and all that comes with
lifting.
Yeah, the bro lifting, their comments, the weird look. I mean, high school is high school. But I found that to be very empowering. And my daughter participates in something like that too at her school.
That's awesome. I was going to ask any insights on being a mom and navigating that piece of, I'm going to say having a daughter, so we talk more to women on Sturdy Girl, but like instilling the messaging of you're so much more than a body and talking about those pieces of working on that confidence, because those teen years are so fraught with hard emotion and just I can't imagine navigating that.
It's hard. I have to say for myself, like I always was aware of what I said, and I don't think I've ever said anything negative about my body in front of my daughter. And I was very conscious of that and wanted to be sure that I didn't do that. And I think it's been good. I don't hear her say, at least to me or in my earshot, right? She's strong. She's been lifting since like when I taught classes at the Y, and she was old enough to come at like 9 years old. She would come and take my classes. So she's always been in that environment.
Yeah.
And I just always try to preach, like it's not about what your body looks like, but what it can do and how beneficial movement is for your mental health as well as your physical health.
Absolutely.
So I think I've done a decent job. I don't know. I probably screwed up in other ways.
There hasn't been any crazy fallout, so we'll keep rolling with it.
Right. But I feel like that's all parenting, right? Like you try to leave your kids better than what you felt it was for you.
Yeah, absolutely. That's all you can do.
Don't know if I've succeeded, but I'm trying.
Cool to see both of your kids playing sports, enjoying movement on a competitive level. Like that's really rad. And for them to have seen the example of you running and strength training and teaching classes about the importance of movement through their whole lives.
Yes.
That's really awesome. Do you feel like the strength training and or running component helped at all as far as like, I want to say resilience, but like that strength piece, that mental strength piece, especially? I was just thinking about like, you're talking about, you did your first 5K, there were a couple years in between, and then you kind of came back to it. You started having kids in that period of time. That running was like your me time. Did that help with mental health and that resilience piece of returning to the challenges of being a new mom or the challenges in life? Like, was there any kind of benefit in that realm?
100%. I tried to do my first half marathon. I was training and found out I was pregnant with my daughter. My mother, God love her, was always calling me like, are you sure you should be doing this? Like, are you sure this is okay for the baby? So eventually I was just like, I'm just going to stop.
Does this go back to our conversation about choosing your battles?
Yes, 100%. Because, she was coming from a good place, and it was like all she knew was the old science that was like, you should not get your heart rate above blah, 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 whatever they say to pregnant
like
women. We used to say to
140 or
pregnant women.
something.
And so I stopped. And then after I had Ava, obviously I kept running, and it did help because like I went from working in an office 50 to 60 hours a week to being home with this tiny little person. My husband travels a lot for work, so a lot of times it was just the two of us, and that was an adjustment. So running, it got me out of the house, and we would go to like parks, and so I would run and then let her play. So it was kind of a thing that we did together. So I think it helped us bond, and then also it was just a place where if like I can get 30 minutes mentally, I'll feel better and be a better mother to her. And then when I had my son, I decided, okay, I'm done having kids because I got one of each, and I didn't want any more kids, and I had hands.
Mm-hmm.
And so,
Or to be outnumbered as a parent.
Right, exactly. And so that's when I started training for my first half. I think I ran my first half, like, he was like 6 months old, 7 months old. Yeah, it's probably stupid in hindsight. I probably should have not went right back to running as soon as I did. But I did it with my best friend, Jess, and another best friend from college, or two different best friends from college. And we did the half together. And when I say together, they were like, please leave me. just go. We'll see you.
There's together, and then there's like running side by side. Yeah.
Yeah. They're like, please go. And I'm like, okay.
I'm running a half in April with a couple of friends, and we're like, are we running together? And I was like, probably not. No offense, but we can all do the race, and we'll see each other at the finish line and go eat brunch afterwards.
Right.
But
probably
not.
Be
solo.
It happens that way sometimes.
Okay. I want to ask, and I was sitting here trying to formulate like how I wanted to ask about being a run coach and your experience with helping people build their confidence in running. But I was trying to think of how I wanted to like word that question, since I also coach runners. And so I have all kinds of thoughts on this, but just the piece of like, someone comes to you and says, Amber, I want to run a half marathon. I am scared shitless, but it's a goal of mine that I have set. Like my big giant goal for 2024 is to run a half. Where do I start? And so you get this piece of like, I'm going to say insecurity, but someone hasn't built a skill in running or built that mental resilience piece that is equally as important as the physical training of a half. Tell me about the experience of getting to help cultivate that.
For me, coaching, whatever it is, I always coach from a place of grace, right? Like we have a plan, but also you need to be kind to yourself and give yourself grace, because a coach should not expect like 100% adherence, right? That's just not realistic. So I come from give yourself some grace. I like to use the 10-minute rule, especially with new people. Give yourself 10 minutes, go out there for 10 minutes or get on the treadmill for 10 minutes. If you're still not feeling it, then give yourself permission to stop. It just wasn't a good day for you. But most of the time, you're going to finish whatever you set out.
For the time you're out there,
yeah.
Giving yourself the option to quit. I think that's really important.
Yeah.
For no matter if you've been doing it for a short time or a long time.
Yeah.
There are times when I have to convince myself, okay, all you need to do is like turn on the treadmill. Okay, you're moving. Okay, you're going to start running. Give it 5 minutes. Okay, give it 10. Like I kind of talk myself into it. And then I tell myself, all right, it's been 10 minutes. Do you want to quit? Like you can quit. And just giving yourself the option to quit. I'm going to say the illusion of choice, because 9 times out of 10, you're like, oh, I'm here. Right? I'm just keep going. Yeah. It helps you to feel more empowered in the decision that you're making to continue it. So I think that's awesome.
I use that on myself too. Like, all right, I'm going to go out here and I'm going to run 10 minutes. And then if I don't feel like it, I'm going to turn around and I'm going to walk myself back. Mm-hmm. I can think of very few times where it was just actually like, yeah, you don't need to be out here, like bad sleep or I hadn't eaten enough or whatever the case may be. But usually I'm going to finish the run or the lift or whatever it is. But for people that are just starting out, I like to focus a lot on the why, right? Why are you doing this race or whatever it is? Because that's what we have to tap back into when it gets hard. Why are we doing this? Because you don't have to, that's the thing, like you don't have to do this. Neither one of us have to be here doing this. No. So this was you, right? Like you had your reason. And so at some point you're going to have to learn to tap into that, because I can't do that for you, right? When it gets hard, what are you going to do?
And that's not even new runners. I think about that with like marathoners that I coach. It's that upper mileage. When you're like, I'm 20 miles in, I'm 21 miles in. What the heck am I doing out here? This hurts. I'm tired. I'm hungry. I don't want to eat any more goo gels. I hate this. I don't ever want to run again. And if you have a strong why, it's going to keep you going. Even as something as simple as like, I ran my first marathon because I was curious if I could do it. And I was like, can I do this? Purely curiosity was my why. was like, well, I ran a half. I ran a second half. This marathon said it's pretty hard, but I'm pretty tough. At least I think I am. So let's see how that goes. Why would I? And so it was like, why would I quit that now? And that's the other thing I think too, when you talk about why, is like people will get hung up on that. They're like, well, my why isn't big enough. It's not profound enough.
It doesn't have to be
It just has to be personally meaningful to you.
Exactly.
On why you continue. And I will tell you, changing your body is not a strong enough why.
No, it's not a strong enough way.
I was say, I don't know what conversations you've had with clients about that, but it's like, if someone comes to me and wants to run a race to lose weight, I won't coach them. And maybe we have the conversation to explore other reasons why, but most of the time I'll say no.
Yeah, I'm not the coach for you.
No, because first of all, long distance running, it's not, that's not the weight loss secret, you know?
Right. No, it's
but
not.
Also, that's not going to keep you going when shit gets hard.
Exactly. Even in the weight room, like the same thing. It's like, well, I want to lose weight, but what else? There's got to be another reason. It can't just be for that.
Yeah, and
like,
usually there is, like, if you have that conversation with someone and they say they want to lose weight, well, I want to lose weight because I want to feel like I have more energy.
I want to feel strong.
I feel like you have, why is that important to you? Well, I have kids and they are really active and I want to be able to keep up with them. And I want to be able to keep up with them my whole life instead of not being able to get up and down off the floor comfortably or be able to jump on the trampoline or chase them around or whatever it is. And so then you uncover that it's not about the weight loss. It's what's underneath.
Let's tap into that.
Yeah, right. And then have that conversation, right?
Yes, 100%.
But I like the fact that you coach from a place of grace because I feel like the messaging, especially in the like run coaching world, and it has shifted some. I mean, you've been coaching long enough that you probably worked through that of just the like grind hard, no days off. Let's train like a pro runner who runs 6 or 7 days a week because that's how we get faster. And it's just the push hard. Everyone's running in kind of that middle zone, moderate effort and not getting any faster, getting any better, or they're burning out or those things. So to say,
or they're getting injured.
Yeah.
I've seen so many coaches that are just like, mileage is king. And I'm just like, that's why your athletes are always injured. When is the break? When is the cutback? Why is every run a workout?
Why aren't we coaching in seasons like any other sport?
You know, and I've been there like as a client and, you know, just as like coaching myself, pushing, and I have to run 6 days a week. And why? Never miss a Monday. I was that person for a while.
Oh, same. Absolutely.
Of course, also I taught a spin class on Monday morning, so I wasn't going to miss a Monday because I had to teach the spin class.
Have you ever heard of Hansen's marathon method?
Yes.
Okay, I did that for 3 marathon cycles.
Wow.
Back to back. For the listeners who don't know what Hansen's marathon method is, the whole premise is to be able to learn to run on tired legs. So you run 6 days a week. You have 1 rest day, but your 6th day of running is a long speed workout. So it's like a combination of half-mile and mile tempos with shorter 1 to 2 minute speed efforts. It is a lot, and I had multiple friends at the time who had Boston qualified using Hansen's marathon method. So I was like, all right, I'm a believer. I see these friends doing this. And I ended up completely burning myself out. I ended up with bronchitis and I ran Marine Corps Marathon with bronchitis and still completed it because that was my mentality at the time. Still showed up, did the race, and then was like, I swore up and down I would never run again. And I took 6 months off after that.
I'm glad you took break. You needed it.
My body and brain wouldn't let me. It was the weirdest form of burnout that I've ever experienced in my life. I would lace up my shoes to go for a run and I'd get outside and I'd start crying because I was like, this is hard. I don't like it. I don't want to do it. And it was that piece of going back to like giving yourself grace. I was like, this isn't the season. This is not the season.
It's not worth it. I mean, you know, like,
no.
We're not winning races. I mean, I don't know. I'm speaking for myself. Like, I'm not winning races. No. I'm not placing. I'm just in the middle of the pack.
Did it for enjoyment for a long time. Yeah. And it had shifted away from that because it was all about like Boston qualifying to me. It was that like going back to giving yourself grace of what season you're in. And I'm trying to even think like what got me back into running. But one of the hardest parts, I think, stepping away from that much running, and I don't know if you can identify with this at all, was my identity was so tied up in running. In being a runner and being a run coach and chasing this Boston qualifying dream and posting every one of my runs online and on Strava and everything that went with that. It was such a hard shift to then realize like my identity exists outside of being a runner. Maybe I strength train too, but like I'm not really like, I don't really like, that's not a thing. I'm not a lifter. I'm a runner. Well, but I haven't run in 6 months. So does that still make me a runner? And trying to detach from that piece. And that I think was kind of the catalyst for me of doing the self-work of being a person beyond like what I do or the things that I do productively in my life.
Well, and that's hard in this industry too, because like when I first started was the era of like your body is your business card, right?
I mean, it's still like that in some circles though.
Yeah, it is.
We've curated our, I think, online communities.
That's true.
Yeah.
So I don't see that anymore. But like, no, it's not. My body's not my business card, because I could be buff and tough and not have any knowledge whatsoever. But I'm going to sell you this plan because you want to look like I look. So I'm going to take advantage of that.
I'm going to sell you my 6-pack.
Exactly. And it's like, that's so stupid. My body doesn't tell you anything about my education, my certifications, what kind of a person I am. None of that.
No.
But I used to believe that. I almost ran myself into the ground.
Trying to keep up with it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So agreed. But going back to that piece of like having that runner give themselves grace, they're showing up, they're really connecting with their why. Are there other things that you would give as advice for building that resilience piece? Like think about the things you say to your clients like all the time.
I mean, like sometimes in class, this isn't so much as running, but I think it also applies when people are like, this is really hard. And I'm like, well, you didn't come here for easy. Like no one chooses to be a runner because it's going to be easy. Running's not easy. I don't feel like it ever gets easy. You just get better at it, right?
Yeah.
When I have people say that in class, I just laugh at them. I'm like, you didn't come here for easy. Like if you wanted it to be easy, you wouldn't have showed up for my class.
You would have gone to like the restorative yoga flow.
Right. Yeah. Or you would have came here by yourself and did like 5 minutes of something and then you would have went back to your desk or whatever. It's going to be hard, just like life. I mean, to me, running is an analogy for life. Like, what are you going to do when it gets hard? Do you quit? Do you keep pushing?
It's knowing when to quit and when to push through.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's not to say like, oh my gosh, you are starting the injury, push through. Like it's the point of like running is hard. If you've run at all, you know how hard it is to go from like detrained and training all of those body systems to get on board to running a half, to running a full, to running ultras, to whatever it is, to people who do like obstacle course races, which just blow my mind. It's hard. And it's looking at that like mental resilience piece of it. How do you continue to show up? It's building the skill of exposing yourself to, I think the research calls it like a just manageable challenge. And so that's where like, you know, talking to you as a run coach, knowing how to program people to progress is you're exposing them continually to that just manageable challenge where whether it's like increasing volume or distance or speed or those pieces or learning to run at a steady state, it's knowing how to progress that to expose people to it.
And I'm a big believer of like the 80-20 rule, especially when it comes to running. Like most of your runs should be easy, you know, easy being relative, right? Yes, exactly.
Holding up my 80-20 running book. Yeah, same.
Yes. Just running ourselves into the ground. Like for what? I actually had a coaching call with a client this morning. She's run, I can't even tell you how many marathons. She's doing 50 states.
That's
so she
amazing.
does a few a year. But like we were talking and she hasn't run in like probably a month. She's like, I can't get back into my habits and like I'm beating myself up. And I'm like, why are you beating yourself up though? You literally ran 4 marathons. You took a month off. It's okay.
Your body and brain need it.
That's the statement. So like, here's what we're going to do. We're going to throw a few 20-minute runs in here and then get your long run in.
Because that's one piece of it too, is like when I wasn't running for those 6 months, I was still like going for walks, going for hikes. I started biking, having other forms of movement, just trying those other things that aren't running and leaving it totally unstructured. But it's such a hard thing. I feel like running attracts more type A personalities and more of those like, if it's on the schedule,
people pleasers, perfectionists. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's really, same, recovering perfectionist. And it's so hard to let go of that sometimes and be in that season of like, okay, what does my body need? Like clearly there's a lot of resistance here to this movement. What is something that I might enjoy? How do I show up in a way that honors my body's need for movement, my brain's need for movement, but it's not something that I am completely dreading.
Right, that I don't feel like doing.
And especially with your client, like making the goal to run in all 50 race in all 50 states and then be like, I just ran 4 marathons, but like, why don't I want to run?
Right. And like we get in this shame cycle, like you shame yourself because you're not doing the run, and then you don't do the run because you're shaming yourself because you didn't do the run or the workout or the nutrition or whatever it is. Like you have to get out of that. So what happened? Let's move. Let's start again. Here's the starting line.
Yeah,
we just move it.
What's the movement that you enjoy? That's what's really important.
Yep.
I was just thinking of our confidence. It's just the building confidence in something, the skill in something. So talking about running, I'm trying to remember where I was reading it, but it was talking about creating habits in your life. And whether those habits are like improving your running, improving your lifting, if it's creating the habits or in drinking more water or eating more fruits and vegetables or whatever, that they were like, don't create the habit as if you're showing up on your best day. Create habits and routines that you can do even on your worst days. Like, what are the things you can follow through on the shittiest of days? And that's what's going to set yourself up for growth and being able to say, okay, here's my baseline. What are my non-negotiables? And then how can I build on that? And I just thought it was really interesting because we do, like for me, when I was sitting down and thinking about what do I want for 2024? What are my goals? Like signed up for this half with my friends. We're running the Maui half marathon in April. So we're making it like a long girls weekend, which I'm really excited about. But it was like, okay, we have this goal to run a half. Obviously I need to run. I need to figure out my run plan. I need to start experimenting with like what shorts I can run in because I haven't run in shorts in ages and it's going to probably be warm over there when we run, and like breaking that all down.
Suggestions.
And then just being like, okay, when I'm tired, when I'm working long days, how am I still able to show up? And honestly, sometimes those days are shorty little runs where it is that point of getting on the treadmill and being like, what can we do today? How can we show up? And then building from that. But that's just my tangent. Sorry. I was just thinking about that piece of this like seasons approach of just how to show up and building. Like that's, I guess my point being like building that confidence, building that skill and that almost self-trust of being able to show up and then trusting yourself enough. So when you have those days or you have those weeks or that actual like full season of I'm not showing up how I normally do, you trust yourself enough to know like there's something else going on here. I'm freaking burnt out from running endlessly, or for me it was powerlifting. I hurt my shoulder and I've had to rehab that and just kind of modify volume there. For the first half of fall last year, like I had no desire to run, and so I just started getting on the bike. It sounded fun. Doing Peloton classes sounded great. It sounded great to get on the bike and do hills and read a book at the same time. And so that's what I did.
Like it. That's talent.
Well, I mean, it was more like, we talking about watching Netflix on the treadmill and that piece of distraction. That was how I'd be like, I really want to finish this book tonight. Well, I'm going to get on the bike and I can finish the book, and like have those, what do they call it? Temptation bundling. So I like bring together the desire to read my book for movement that I want to and know I need to get in and like pair them together.
I do that a lot.
It's fun.
I think for new people also stressing that walking doesn't not make you a runner.
Like when you take walking breaks during running?
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Because I can think back to like when I became a runner, there was no way I could walk during a run.
Yeah, because then you
didn't
failed.
count.
I was the same way. Like I remember, I want to say curating my runs for when I'd like post the watch shot on social so that it would like be a faster pace, because I wouldn't put like, I'd stop my watch when I'd walk. So I wouldn't tell anyone, oh my God, I had to walk up that huge hill to get back to my house. I'd just like stop it. In hindsight, I'm like, that was okay.
We call those road runner things. No? Like the difference between road runners and trail runners.
Oh yeah.
I'm going to hike this hill. I'm going to spend 8 minutes at this aid station eating pickles and watermelon because that sounds delicious.
Trail running is just so different. I've had a few runners in the last year, a few of my athletes transition in from road to trail and never want to go back. Doing their first trail race and they're like, there's real food at aid stations. People walk up the hills. Like, what is this? Craziness. Or when we're like training for the race and they're like, well, when I'm going to eat on this run, like I'm going to need 37 goo gels. And I'm like, let's talk about some real food options. Not actually 37, but you know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you mean.
And I'm like, trust me, gummy candy is gold. Like, let's play around with these things and get curious. But oh my gosh, yeah, you transition over and you're like, it can be fun. Although I've still never been able to eat pretzels. Like the pretzels are always at aid stations on trail races.
Too dry. I'm like, no, I'll just take the pickles things. You get the same sodium.
It is better. Wild how good pickles and pickle juice.
Pickle juice, yes.
On long runs. Oh my God. Anyways, okay, I'm gonna go off on a tangent about how much I love trail running for the simple fact that like you get to eat candy and PB&Js and like cold pizza and flat Coke and you're like, this is the life. I think one other piece to wrap up, just talking about new runners and building that physical and mental resilience piece, is keep showing up, keep getting curious. That's the biggest thing that I feel like when I ask you, like, what do you say to your clients all the time? That is something that I say to my clients, whether they're new or have been with me for years, is be curious, stay curious. One of my clients, we just started reincorporating speed work. We're kind of in off season and we're going to transition fairly soon into training for a fast 10K. And in the past, speed work has been very structured. And so this time around, like, we're just starting with strides. And I was like, take a deep breath and just get curious. You're going to pick 5 times to run for 20 seconds at moderate pace and then go back down to easy pacing. There's no pacing requirements. Just get curious with your body. See what feels good. See what feels fun. Think about a little kid like racing across a field and just use that. Get curious of what your body's capable of to be able to keep showing up for yourself instead of letting it be something that's a box to check on your to-do list. Yeah.
Strides are the best way to introduce with the correct instructions, right?
Yes.
Because most people see it and then they're like, oh, I get a sprint. No, we don't have to sprint.
I can redline this? Okay, let's go.
Zone 5. No, stop it.
I know, right? Did you have any other thoughts along the lines of building body confidence for runners or lifters or people trying to move their bodies better?
I think trusting the process. Pick the plan, hopefully a coach, but if you pick a plan, you got to be realistic about where you're at, right? I feel like sometimes people pick those free plans that they find and it's like, I'm going to do this intermediate half marathon plan. I'm like, but you're not an intermediate runner.
And
like,
those
you need the
immediately
beginner.
Have you running 5 days a week when you haven't been running at all?
Yeah. So once you find a plan that's doable, just trust the process. I think that's the hardest part sometimes, especially when you get to longer races.
And wanting to see progress right away.
Yeah.
Or have things feel tangibly better. When if it's your first race in a while or your first long distance run in a while, it's like it doesn't get easier very quickly. And then sometimes like 1 in 15 runs, you get that magical run that you're like,
that's what I was going to say.
I love
Tap
this
into
so
that
much.
one.
Yes, exactly.
Like there's always that one, and then you got to just remember that feeling and carry it with you.
Yeah. Otherwise, find good audiobooks, podcasts, music.
Oh, yeah.
Find those things as a way to get through.
I listen to Handmaid's Tale when I train for my 50K.
Wow. Would have been a fun one. I go for the rom-coms that are just ridiculously easy to be able to like listen
and
to
cheesy.
all along. Yeah, completely
That's
cheesy.
probably a better decision. I wouldn't advise people to pick Handmaid's Tale for that.
I remember last year when I was training for a half, I was running a paved bike path and I got to this really spicy scene in this rom-com and I'm like looking around. This is okay. No one can hear this, but Jess, geez, okay. Just keep running.
A lot during the run.
Yeah, right. I'm like, is it warm? No, it's like 35 degrees, but I feel a little warm with this jacket on and okay.
Get this part.
Yeah, I might need to fast forward. Okay, this actually leads me into kind of our like wrap up rapid fire questions. What is the number one book you recommended or given as a gift?
Michelle Obama's Becoming.
I love it.
And I say the audiobook.
Because doesn't she narrate?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's fantastic.
It's good.
Noted. What is your favorite kind of cookie?
Chocolate chip.
Does it matter if it's hard or soft or crunchy or...
Soft in the middle.
Crunchy on the outsides?
Yeah, a little bit of crunch on the outside.
You're my kind of girl. That's my favorite too. This might be a giveaway. What is one activity that brings you joy and takes away attention from your body?
Definitely running, but I would say lifting too.
Okay, last question. How do you take your coffee, besides in a regular mug, put into your cup holder in your car?
Open cup in the car, always. No, it depends. If I'm going to a coffee shop, then I like to get a latte with honey and cinnamon.
Yum.
If I'm at home, honestly, I drink black coffee more often than not. Sometimes I'll put a little creamer in there.
Honey and cinnamon sounds like such a warm combination. I like that.
Oh, it's so good.
It's fantastic. Okay. Well, where can our audience find you and learn more about your coaching?
Instagram at soulstrengthkc, or my website is soulstrengthkc.com.
Thanks so much for joining us today for chatting about running and lifting and all things physical and mental resilience. This has been fun.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for listening, friends. As you now are aware, we are dropping episodes on Fridays now, so we will catch you next Friday. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this podcast episode, please feel free to follow, subscribe, like, whatever the heck you do with podcasts. As always, stay sturdy, friends, and we'll talk to you next week.